Werewolves. The Iron Wolves. You want to know what to do if you meet an Iron Wolf? Well, dear nephew, your mother's dragon blood would be obvious in one sniff. About 2 generations below you, they won't notice, but you're their enemy if they smell dragon. No matter what you do or how you do it, who you are or your place in the world, if they know what you are, they'll be hunting you in secret. There may only be, 13 left? But don't underestimate the tenacity of the creatures that slaughtered your grandmother. Tellers and Bill in English Poison. For the next 3 recordings about species, I'm going to be covering the case of werewolves within my Beyond the Veil universe, and these parts will include pedigree werewolves, or pure blood werewolves, the cursed and the enchanted, but we'll start with the more unique in my universe, the Iron Wolves. Now, like all werewolves, these beings are separate from other shapeshifters because their shifting is controlled by patterns of the moon, first of all, and this awakens their animal instincts and their desire to hunt. The level of control over these instincts to hunt and how they shift is what separates the groups, so I'll start simply with my inspirations for these creatures, and then, before I go through the little fact file section, I'll talk about their role and difference from the rest of the werewolves. So, when you think Iron Wolf, or even when you search it, there's a lot of stuff that comes up that makes you cringe or makes you think of World War II. Sadly, you'll find a lot of werewolf stuff and rules and Germanic lore got used a lot back then, but my inspiration is actually from Lithuania. If you know anything about the Lithuanian capital, Vilnius, you'll know this story. So, the story goes that Grand Duke Gediminas, I'm not sure about the pronunciation, sorry, was hunting in a sacred forest, and after a tiring day taking down Oroak, they settled for the night. The Duke fell soundly asleep when he had a strange dream of a wolf dressed in iron standing on a hill. It howled with the voice and strength of 1,000 wolves, and when the Duke woke up, he called his krivis, a type of pagan priest, over to interpret the dream for him. The figure told him the armoured wolf represented a castle that he should found upon that hill to be the nation's capital, and that the glory of their deeds will echo throughout the world. This is the founding legend of Vilnius, and you've probably seen the image on their sports team of the armoured wolf. This story I stumbled upon because at the time I wanted to write a werewolf story and a story with Teutonic knights in it. What I had in my head for the original story I was working on was that the werewolf to bite and change the people was sent by the Lithuanians to try and kill the knights from within. It became a bit of a dumb story for a while, and I left it to the side for several years when I was rereading Wagner the Werewolf, relearning my werewolf lore, and in a strange way it seemed always drawn back to the Germanic regions. And so I thought then that I wanted a specific kind of German werewolf. Now, this was always something that confused me. Why are werewolves something the brain tends to aim as being a Germanic thing? For a start, lycanthropy comes from King Lycaeus. Romulus and Remus were raised werewolf, and the Egyptians had half animal, half human deities. The French had the beast of Gévaudan, and in Scandinavia we have Fenrir, and even in Eastern Europe there's a lot more werewolf lore. So why Germany? Well, Germanic folklore and Nordic folklore is pretty much the same. The Germanic tribes worship similar figures, and just like in Scandinavia, there's a belief in the wolf strap. Now, I'll discuss the wolf strap when we talk about cursed and enchanted werewolves later. But for now, there really isn't anything that stood out to make Germany seem like the huge werewolf culture it seemed to be in my mind. That is, but for 3 little points that somehow seem to come together and make it almost seem like a prime region for a distinct werewolf. 1. The carnage at the Teutoburg forest. That might not be what you think of when you think German werewolves, but being a wolf lover and a kid whose father is a historian for ancient history and history programs were a big thing growing up, the concept of such savagery by a group of beings to keep their landscape uncivilized was kind of creepy to comprehend as a youngster. My thoughts were in those days that only monsters did that kind of thing, especially with descriptions of corpses strewn about the place. But in hindsight, that's a kind of funny thing to assume a werewolf thing, when the wolf represented the end of the world, Fenrir at the time, and the wolf was a symbol of Rome to the Romans. But I was already on a werewolf journey then, so anything savage like that all seemed connected. The big bad wolves of grim fairy tales. Well, what do you expect? The wolf can talk to Red Riding Hood, and in original stories tries to get her to eat her granny's flesh. Not to mention the wolves in those stories are pretty proactive and clever about how they get their prey. Sure, you can interpret them any way you want, but the wolves are threatening in every sense of the word in the story. in every sense of the word in the stories, and that's because the regions the stories came from always had the potential to be problematic. I always like to think of Little Red Riding Hood, as many I know do, as a werewolf story. And 3. Peter Stubb, or Peter Stump. If you know anything about witch and werewolf trials, let alone if you read anything into werewolves, you can't get anywhere without meeting a being whose punishments were even put on a woodcut at the time, so everyone knew his punishment. Peter Stubb was a man in Bedburg, Germany, in the late 1500s that claimed to have been given a wolf strap, which is a belt made of a wolf, by the devil to allow him to turn into a wolf and fulfill his lust for human flesh. It is the predominant werewolf trial that is known, and yet from various documentaries discussing these trials, though I can't find the damn documentary anymore, there was a story of another being doing similar. This was a young boy that was given either a salve to wear or another wolf strap from a dark stranger, and would attack young girls in particular like a ravening wolf. He was said to have been trialled, but the local monks felt pity on him and baptized him to try to save him. I can't remember his name or what happened to him next, but the werewolf witchcraft trials were so big in Germany and France, it seemed like it fit properly. Then later on, I got another odd thing. Werewolf trials in Livonia, particularly cases like that of Hans the werewolf. But then there was the strange story of a benevolent werewolf in this story of Thies of Kaltenbrunn. Sorry, I can't pronounce that one very well. I'd only heard little snags of this situation before, just little scraps about some werewolf that fought against the forces of Satan, and well, it goes something like this. In the usual manner of a werewolf trial, an 80-year-old called Thies confessed to being a werewolf, but he claimed he and other werewolves regularly went to hell 3 times a year to fight witches and wizards working for Satan to ensure a good harvest. The court tried to make him confess to having made a pact with the devil to gain his power, but it did not work, and instead of execution he just received a whipping. Not what you'd expect from a werewolf witch trial, but in Livonia, in a region in modern Latvia today. It was a benevolent werewolf fighting against Satan, and that was the slap in the face for what would become my Iron Wolves, as I pulled back to my old notes and began to rewrite it and mix it with the stories at the time of knights facing dragons, and that's when I created this origin story I can tell you now. When Lucifer released the dragons upon the world, the angels saw and feared that the beast's corruption of man was too great. They sought for the most fearless beings in the vale that would dare to fight the creature for the sake of the Almighty. In the lands of the Baltic they found a noble cursed werewolf knight that wished to take on the foe, so the angels felt to give him a gift to help him in his battle. They gave him armour blessed by the Almighty, and similar to the armour of Archangel Michael, and they gave him javelins to aid him spear his foe, and sent him to battle. But the first attempt against the dragon was difficult. Though he speared it, the beast continued to fight, and its tempting offer to cure the curse made the humans start to falter. He escaped, but the angels had to think of a different way to make him fight. It was then that Raphael promised to grant a unique cure to the curse, to allow the knight to have full control of his wolf form if he trusted in God that he could fight the dragon. To aid him, Raphael begged for the archangel Zadkiel to turn one of his daggers into a coating for the fangs of the wolf form, to enable the ability of God's mercy to fall upon his enemies and remove the demon completely. Zadkiel obeyed, and when the knight went to battle again, he went in his wolf form and fought well, his mind unable to be corrupted and his armour deflecting the fire of the beast. When his fangs bit into the beast, its powers began to fade until the wolf removed the dragon's head, and the creature turned to ash, save that head. The first dragon had been defeated, but the dragon soon swarmed to find the wolf, and the angel Remiel went to the wolf and released him from his humanity, letting the werewolf curse overtake him. The wolf ran through the lands, biting over 1,000 beings before he was permitted his control, and with it, freedom to live in the sacred forests of the world beyond the veil. As for those he'd bitten, they transformed, but the hunger and the savageness was lost. They were in full control and could even shift when they wished, but each was met by a guardian angel and told their destiny to fight the dragons and save the world. So you can see where I've mixed things together to work there. In the legend of the Iron Wolves, the first pack was made up of beings bitten in Livonia and the Baltic, including members of the Teutonic Order, who built up a new religious order named for their master. They linked up along the paths of the Crusades in the Baltic and the Holy Land to fight the dragons, and also to make new members of their kind. They included men and women in their number. They soon realised that they would have to bite the unwilling to protect their abilities, and so they changed the concept of being nuns and monks, and took wives and husbands and had children. The majority of the births occurred in the Baltic. Some of these children were Iron Wolves like their family, but some were just very special humans, From this, these humans gained the nickname Teutons, and though they could not change, they carried the blood to create others. The generation spread around the world, and soon there was a pack of iron wolves at major capitals around the world, fighting back and killing the dragons whenever they found them. But times changed, the dragons went into hiding, and soon the iron wolves were almost outcasts amongst the Vale beings. Favoured by angels, and clearly not willing to fall under the fall of the vampires, they kept to themselves and worked only to defeat other demons. They began to be called on to deal with all manner of demons, appearing like sacred warriors when requested by communities to rid them of their demon. It was steady work until the 1700s, when something horrible happened amongst the cursed werewolves of the world. It was thought that the dragon to have gifted rabies into the world had returned very briefly with a new kind, something that would only be given the German name Metzger, butcher. This sparked the cannibalistic and murderous madness inside the curse, forcing them to shift whenever their body experienced a fever caused by the bite of this illness, and the werewolves infected attacked everything, vampires, werecats, and even other werewolves. We'll discuss the Metzger in its own video next month, but needless to say, the Metzger was impossible to kill unless an iron wolf removed its head, and so the iron wolves became locked in battle once again. The violence and insanity meant that the being would keep biting until its head was severed, and taking one down took at least 2 iron wolves. The iron wolves, who had forsaken turning others so long ago it was deemed impossible for them to spread it through bites anymore, found themselves being wiped out steadily by these beings. Just when the iron wolves had helped to reduce the ailment, some became drawn into the Vale politics of the Scandinavian Vale and the Vale agents. As they began to be pulled into situations with the Vale agents, they were sent to fight dragons once again, but these dragons were smarter, stronger, and steadily their kind began to die out. Things came to a head, though, in the wake of the rise of the purists and Nazism around the time in the Vale and beyond it. The sacred link of the iron wolves and the Baltic, and the purists in the Vale began to start imprisoning iron wolves amongst the other beings, like cursed werewolves that did not fit the mould. The purist movement spread around the world, and when the iron wolves refused to agree to their ideas and stated they would go into hiding until the Vale was normal again, the purists began to hunt them down specifically. The iron wolves of the Vale became extinct, save a few that moved into the Scandinavian Vale or hid in the regions of Uberwald, managing not to piss off the dragon and Asakis. The last iron wolves remaining belonged to one family, the Mullers, who were hiding in a special fortress in a Vale pocket in Nazi Germany. They had assumed themselves safe there because they never changed from their wolf form, but one of their number betrayed them, aiding in book burning and letting himself be branded with a mark that turned out to be a dragon demon's curse. The last of the iron wolves were revealed to the dragons, now gaining control, and they ran, many being killed till all that was left was Grandpa Conrad and his grandchildren, hidden by and with the Vale agents in the United Kingdom, and all of them given special injections to stop them from aging for as long as possible. Until finally, when the Kromorski fell, they emerged amongst the Vale agents and were very, very busy. That's probably a hell of a lot. Probably a hell of a lot there that I've told you, but these guys had a big history before they were chopped down to just Conrad and his grandkids, and well, they are important. You can also see that their ability to change at will, and that they aren't possessed with the desire to actually go and kill things and hunt so much, let alone that they can actually talk to people when they're in their wolf form with ease, is one of the big differences between them and all other werewolves. So, the little profile thing. Side, good. Created by the Archangels. Created for defeating dragon demons. Created when? The 1100s. Physical description. Varies. They are normal humans in every aspect, but when they transform, they are wolves that could rival a Newfoundland dog in size and height, able to carry a person upon their back, and certainly they are incredibly strong, with the hardest set of teeth going. They do not stand on their hind legs, though. Abilities. They change into giant wolves, kill demons and others by decapitating them, and actually purging their soul or essence from all existence, and are immune to most demon charms, vampire fangs, they cannot give permission at all, poisons, and the Metzger virus. They live longer and healthier than most humans, and don't get ill very easily. They also have a reproductive ability to tie like a canine when breeding. It's quite rare and deemed a dominant feature, encouraged because it's thought this increases the possibility of producing iron wolves. On a side note, Teutons have all of these abilities as well. They just don't turn into wolves and usually step beyond the veil and live amongst humans. Most known for killing dragons. Weaknesses: though they heal fast, they are not impervious to every weapon, and though it can take a lot of power to bring one down, they can be killed through modern weapons like explosives and a good number of bullets. They are not immortal. Number. As of the year 2000, there were exactly 17 pedigree iron wolves known to live, though this number includes Klaus the Traitor, rumoured to be trapped in demonic servitude. Well-known beings. The entire family remaining, though Mikhail, Klaus's twin brother and the father of the main sons, is a big hero for sacrificing himself to fight his brother and save his kids. I'll name all the living members now quickly. Conrad, Goddard, Klaus, Arnold, Wilhelmina, Kai, Grimbold, Heike, Inez, Christoph, Tobias, Lucas, Sven, Axel, Vash, Sabine, and Edouard. Characters in stories. The Iron Wolves have their own story series, so each of them should eventually get some sort of story, but 4 of them turn up in lots of other stories too. This includes Conrad, being Grandpa. Being Grandpa, he works a lot with Obadiah and the Veil Agents. Kai, he works for the Uberwald Embassy in Berlin, and he'll be met in some stories. Grimbold, he holds a big rank in the Veil Agents and is often commented on quite a lot for different reasons. And Christoph. Christoph turns up a lot. He's the main Veil Agent you see on the ground, and he's actually a huge part of Darcy's Viper Clan story, Amphisbaena, and he's always fun to write. Final comments. I love these guys, though I end up feeling that they're not as diverse as they could be. Though I explained it to myself as to why, but to be fair, I owe a Lithuanian Iron Wolf, and there could be any number of them not knowing what they are amongst other werewolves. So, who knows what might bubble up in future stories. Also, I adore Kai and Christoph the most. Thank you.